Next, the US's acting ambassador to the United Nations has pointed the finger at Hamas for Israel's decision to resume its war in Gaza. The White House has confirmed that Israel did consult with Washington before carrying out a wave of attacks that killed over 400 people overnight. More than 600 more have been injured. Well, the strikes, which killed mostly women and children, have upended relative calm in Gaza, shattering a ceasefire with Hamas that began 2 months ago. Israel has since tried to justify the attacks by arguing that Hamas had refused Israeli demands to extend the first stage of the ceasefire agreement. Well, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has just wrapped up an address. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
We have prolonged the ceasefire by 2 weeks, even when we did not receive hostages in return. We were part of delegations in Doha and Cairo with mediators, and we accepted proposals, even from Witkoff, and Hamas rejected everything several times. I committed again and again that if Hamas continues to refuse releasing hostages, we would come back on the offensive. And we have resumed fighting in a very forceful way.
Well, let's cross over live to France 24's Jerusalem correspondent, Noga Tarnopolsky, who joins us live now. Noga, good to have you. Just tell us more about what Netanyahu had to say.
Hi, Yinka. Well, Netanyahu didn't address really any of the substance that is roiling Israelis tonight, but he made campaign-style promises, I would say. He promised that the war is the return to war today is just the beginning. He promised that Israel will intensify its war in Gaza, which today began with 80 airstrikes in a period of 10 minutes. So that's saying quite a lot. And he said that negotiations, if Israel returns to negotiations, it will only be under fire. So it was a very belligerent statement, and it seemed aimed, among other things, at reassuring his most nationalist extremist coalition partners, one of whom quit at the start of this ceasefire process, one of whom is threatening or wavering. It seemed aimed at reassuring them that they can stick by him and he's going to stick to war. Netanyahu did go out a little bit in assuring Israelis that the U.S. backs this completely. The American statements have been slightly more, I would say, restrained than that.
Well, we've had plenty of widespread condemnation, international condemnation to these strikes. Tell us about what the mood is like in Israel.
Right. Internationally, it's been across-the-board condemnation of Israel from allies and enemies alike. Inside Israel, we're seeing an eruption against this decision by the Prime Minister. There had been a very large protest planned for tomorrow. This came way before a return to war. A few days ago, the Prime Minister announced he was firing the director of the Israeli Domestic Security Agency, the Shin Bet. And a very significant protest is planned against that for tomorrow. It kind of framed as defending Israeli democracy. But spontaneously tonight, there are thousands and thousands of Israelis on the streets asking for an end to the war. In Tel Aviv, it looks like there are tens of thousands. In 2 different spots in Jerusalem, the police have been dispersing smaller crowds, but fairly violently. And we're seeing, that 70% plus of Israelis who now for going on a year have consistently said they want an end to the war and they want to see all the remaining hostages come home. They're taking to the streets in anger tonight.
Noga, great to have that update from you. Thank you so much for that. Noga Tarnopolsky reporting live there from Jerusalem. Well, it's time for